Self-talk is very important for you as an entrepreneur, as a person working, and it's really important to know how to do that. So we've got a special treat for you today. We've got joining us now from his office in Gainesville, Georgia, Dr. Bill Lampton, who is a doctorate in communication. He helps many people to improve their communication, speak better, lots of good things. Bill, thanks for joining us today.
Delighted. My privilege, Terry.
Well, I'm really fascinated with what you and I were talking about with self-talk and what you've been able to do with that. Now, I think I know what it means, but I want to hear from you, the doctor. How would you define self-talk?
I would define self-talk as, truthfully, the conversations that we have with ourselves. And really, we ought to have good conversation with ourselves before we have a conversation with anybody else. For example, Terry, you and I both know how flooded the job market is now with so many applicants.
Yes.
And the job applicant should, before they go into an interview, have a very positive, affirmative, self-supporting conversation with themselves. For example, suppose the applicant were to say, you know, I'm really not qualified for this job, and look at this old suit. Too bad I didn't buy a new one, and there's so many other good applicants. Gee, I don't have the experience. What chance do they have of getting that job? On the other hand, if they go into the interview saying, oh, well, this may not be a new suit, but it's still in style. I'm looking sharp today. I have an education that will be beneficial for this job. My experience may not be directly relevant, but it certainly qualifies me. And yes, there are other good applicants, but I'm at the top of the heap. You know then that you've got a much better chance of scoring big in the interview.
So you think that really those words that we say to each other, I think in school they call that the intrapersonal communication. And so what we say to ourselves, you from a scientific point of view, and you've studied this stuff, I mean, you got your doctorate in this communication area, that really does affect us?
Yes, and I would go back to the expert that I learned from, and that's Dr. Shad Helmstetter, with his book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. If our listeners and viewers have not read that book, I certainly recommend it. His book prompted me to produce a video for YouTube entitled Support Yourself with Self-Talk. And looking today, my video, Support Yourself with Self-Talk, has had over 6,100 viewers. And Terry, I get comments from people constantly saying that the advice that I give in that video about self-talk has been very helpful for them in their singing performance, their acting, their job performance, everything that they do. I hear wonderful feedback on that.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, well, let me put you on the spot here. You work with a lot of people. I know you work with a lot of executives, and you're working with them in confidential coaching, helping them when they've got to make a speech, when they've got to do things. Tell us, what kind of talk should we have to ourselves in our own head to make sure we can achieve the goal that we want, whether it's a job interview or performing or selling, things like that? What kind of things would you recommend?
I'd take an example you mentioned, speaking. There are things that we should say to ourselves that make the speaking situation much more affirmative and much more likely for success. One of them would be, audiences are not our critics. Audiences are our cheerleaders. They really want us to succeed. How many times does an audience really want a speaker to fail? Probably not any, unless the guy or the lady has just fired everybody in the audience.
Yeah.
Otherwise, failure for an audience is as uncomfortable as it is for the speaker. So realize that audiences are your supporters and your friends. Another example that I work with people on is people who are trying to network. When they're going to, let's say, a Chamber of Commerce business after hours, don't say to yourself before you go, I don't know anybody, there are cliques there that I won't be able to get into. Go in and say, most people are friendly, they're open, they're receptive, they like to meet strangers. I'm going to have a wonderful time tonight. And that's the way it'll work out.
That makes sense. So we do that. Now, here's another thing that can happen. You can go in there and legitimately there is someone who is, they got up on the wrong side of the bed. They say something nasty to us, and that might devastate many people. What kind of things should they say to themselves after that setback, after someone has looked at them and said, oh, you're not one of the cool kids in school, or so to speak, something like that. Now, what should we say to ourselves then?
Good question. We simply say to ourselves that that person is having a bad day and they're using us as a target. There are other people there who will be more receptive, friendlier, warmer, more supportive. We just move along to them politely.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So in others, you just bounce back and start putting good kind of things in your mind to work with that. Well, I know that you've done some things in your personal life as well, that you and your wife are doing some things to help people in a positive way, part of that self-talk and some things. Tell me a little bit about those things that you're doing.
Well, a short time ago, several months ago, my wife Sandra and I recognized that we were sort of a rarity among couples and that we have now been married 52 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Well, thank you. We felt that there were some things in our lives that made that possible, made it happen, which we wanted to share with others. And so we started a blog, which has gotten very good response. You can find the blog at livebiggerlovebetter.com. And in the blog, we talk about items such as your marriage doesn't have to be perfect, and how you really should add interest to your marriage. It doesn't have to be boring. How you accept different stages of your life, and even how you get through the tough times together, because in 2008, both Sandra and I were cancer patients, fortunately, successfully, but it was a demanding time, and our support for each other was very valuable on that.
Yes, that's true. You've done a lot and courageously come through that and done many good things. Well, Bill, you have helped so many people in many ways. I know you give a lot of practical advice for those that, like we mentioned, that are getting ready to do that big speech, or they need it on an ongoing basis, or they need to communicate better with their people. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way is with most professional people, Terry, is my website, championshipcommunication.com. I also, in addition to the blog that Sandra and I share, I've got a blog of my own, thecompletecommunicator.com. And also, people can find me on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. The best place to start, of course, is, again, my website, championshipcommunication.com.
That's great. Well, Dr. Lampton, we appreciate you joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Terry.